I'm trying to platinum the entire Assassin's Creed franchise, spanning 14 games and 810 trophies, and today I'll be completing my favorite game in the series, Assassin's Creed 4. I first played it years ago, and getting the plat will show me if it's carried by nostalgia or if it's really as good as I remember. Like most of the games so far, I'll have to complete the main story along with all the side objectives, but this time I won't have to do all the side content and gather collectibles, which is good because the plat is long enough as is. That's because of two major grinds towards the end, those being fully upgrading my ship and hitting max level in multiplayer. This is by far the longest plat in this series so far, with a 70-hour completion time, and I don't know what I did wrong this time because PSN Profiles has it rated as a 50-hour plat, and usually I land close to their times. But that's besides the point, so let's get started at the same spot as usual, the main story. We start the game by being introduced to the main character, Edward Kenway, whose ship is being attacked by the British Navy, and after sinking a few small ships, we get boarded by an assassin before the ship explodes and knocks us out. We then make it to shore where we talk with the assassin, but since he threatened to kill us, we chase him through the jungle and kill him for his clothes. He also had a letter asking him to go meet someone in Havana with some information, so of course we plan on going in his place to get some money. Before that though, we need to get off the island, and thankfully there's a merchant with a ship nearby who's also going to Havana. Next to where we saved him, there's also a treasure map, and following it earns us some money and our first trophy of the run. Once we sail away, sequence 1 ends for another trophy. We are then removed from the Animus and get introduced to this game's modern day sections, which don't involve Desmond since he died at the end of the last game. Instead, we're just some random guy working for Abstergo to get some pirate footage for a game that they're making. We don't really do anything yet, so we just return to our Animus to keep playing as Edward. In Havana, we go to the Assassin's meeting where we meet the two other guests, a British guy called Woods Rogers and a French guy called Julien Ducasse. After meeting those two, we go meet the group leader, Grandmaster Torres, who adds the three of us to the Templar Order. He then goes on to explain that our goal is to find some place called the Observatory, and we'll use a guy called Roberts to find it. Unfortunately, Edward is a greedy pirate and plans on selling the observatory for some cash, so he goes to free Roberts for information. But turns out he already escaped, and our identity is uncovered, so we get shipped out on his slaver ship. With an absolute unit of a man as an ally, we free ourselves and the other prisoners to take over the ship and sail through a hurricane to escape, ending sequence 2 for another trophy. On our way to our next destination, we stopped by a small island to get enough supplies to craft some stuff, and since I was already there, I collected everything in the island, which unlocked the trophy. After this quick detour, we eventually made it to Nassau, which was our initial destination, where we find some old friends of Edward's, Blackbeard, Hornigold, and Kid. Thanks to the abundance of pirates here, we managed to form a decent enough crew that we used to plunder some ships and use their rewards to upgrade our own. While boarding some more ships, I also unlocked a trophy for doing so without losing a single crew member. Once we're done with that, we go work with Kid to raid a plantation, which was really easy since all we needed to do was loot a key to get the resources from the warehouse. Back at Nassau, we plan to steal a galleon with Blackbeard to defend the island. And it just so happens that Ducasse is on the ship we're trying to steal, so thanks to this mission, we have one more ship, one less Templar to deal with, and one more trophy for completing the sequence. Before continuing, we take a quick break to progress the modern storyline by meeting the CCO, who turns out is hella Québécois. After that, some guy from IT asks us to hack into a computer and give the files to Sean and Rebecca from the previous games before returning to our Animus for a trophy. With Kid, we discover a Templar mansion in Nassau and decide to go warn the assassins that they're low-key cooked because Edward sold off their information. On my way to our meeting location, I found the first of 3 social events needed for a trophy later, a white whale. I'll explain it more later on, but just know that I already have one of the 3 requirements. On the Assassin's Island, we have to sneak our way to Kid's location, where we get confronted by their leader and also learn that Kid is an assassin, although that was pretty obvious by this point. Inside a temple, we find a big ass statue that looks like Robert's, which is important because I don't know, and outside the Templars pulled up, so we have to free all the captured assassins and our crew. Once everyone's been freed, the sequence ends for another trophy. Sequence 5 starts with us destroying our first fort, in which we also find Torres, who tells us the supposed location of Robert's. Turns out he's with a slaver, the same guy who attacked the assassin's base. So we go to Kingston to find them, but turns out Kid is already there to kill them, but we convince him to let us go through with our plan first. While we scope out this guy's plantation to figure out a way to sneak in, Kid reveals that he's actually been a woman the whole time and is actually called Mary. After making our way through the property, we find the slaver and kill him, but Roberts managed to capture Mary and escape, making this whole sequence pointless. After escaping ourselves, we get a trophy. The next part of the story has us getting some medicine for the sick people of Nassau with Blackbeard, and our first attempt to get some had us diving into a shipwreck to find some vials. But of course, they were spoiled, so we have to find a different way to get the medicine. So the next thing we try is to attack a ship carrying some and only get one small crate out of it. We also find out that the crate came from some place called Charlestown, so that's our next place to check. Unfortunately, the entire Charlestown section is just a tailing mission, first on a ship and then on foot, but at least we do get the medicine that we needed. Blackbeard also announces that he's going to retire, which is surely going to be an uneventful retirement. This also marks the end of sequence 6 and sends us out of the Animus again. Also, quick side note, I did get trophies for completing 25 challenges and for swimming 1 nautical mile, but I didn't know where to fit them into the script, so I'm just gonna put them here. This modern day section was more of the same, some hacking and spying on Abstergo, during which we get some more Quebec pride. After another data transfer to the assassins, we return to the real game for a trophy. Things aren't looking good back in Nassau because the British pulled up with Woodes Rogers offering a pardon. Hornigold seems to be the only one really considering it, effectively making him an op from now on. To make things worse, the Navy formed a blockade around the island, so of course the only play here is to kill their commodore and sail a ship loaded with explosives into said blockade. After escaping, I get another trophy. I had also gotten one while collecting the gunpowder for the ship for killing a guard ringing a bell. Before continuing with the story, I did some material farming to upgrade my ship, and in the process got a trophy for earning 50k reals, one for getting 5 rope assassinations, and wasn't recording when I got another for plundering 30 ships. Sequence 8 starts with Blackbeard's retirement party, which gets ruined because of a spy that gives info to the British, who bomb the fuck out of the party. So in return we board their main ship, but this gets Blackbeard killed and forces us to escape. At least he managed to give us some intel on Robert's location, which we use with Vane to track down a ship. But after boarding it and getting more information, we get betrayed by Rackham and lose our ship, crew, and get left stranded with Vane. We somehow managed to get to an island, but Vane low-key lost his mind, so we just beat his ass and get picked up by a passing ship and escape, ending the sequence for another trophy. After getting our ship and crew back in Nassau, we go follow up the lead we had on Roberts, but it turns out Woodes and Hornigold have caught up to us. After following them for a while, we see them link up with Torres, and we find out that Roberts is in Africa by listening to their conversation. So of course we follow this lead and sail to Africa, where we finally find Roberts, who asks us to kill some Templars. After we kill both of them, we make a deal with Roberts. We help him, and he takes us to the observatory. This also marks the end of the sequence. What Roberts wants from us is to steal a Portuguese ship that has something he wants, so of course we get that done quick to fulfill our part of the deal. After we escape with it, Roberts shows us that all he was after were some blood samples from the Templars. Now that we did our part, Roberts has to take us to the observatory, but first we kill Hornigold. With that done, we head to the island where it is, and after sneaking through the jungle, we finally arrive to the observatory. Inside, Roberts shows us that with a blood sample, it shows that person's current location before betraying us. But even though we make it out, we get whooped, abandoned by our crew, and turned in for a bounty to end the sequence. Before concluding Edward's story, we have to return to the modern day, where we've been put in a bunker since we're under investigation for the data leaks. After the IT guy asks us to do some more hacking, we somehow manifest one of those fuck-ass ancient civilization people, which was supposed to take over our body, but it clearly failed, pissing off the IT guy. After she's done yapping, we return to the Animus for a trophy. Back in Edward's shoes, we are now in jail with Mary and Anne, the bartender from Nassau. They stall being executed by account of them being pregnant, which gives us the time to be saved by the assassin leader. Although we make it to their cells and free them, Mary dies from an illness before escaping. After a drunken hallucination, Adewale finally shows up with her ship, but leaves, fed up with her bullshit, and joins the assassins. After losing everyone and everything he's cared about, Edward finally locks in and also joins the assassins. We also get to talk with Anne, the only one left from Nassau, about all that's happened so far, and she becomes our new quartermaster. This conversation also ends the sequence. Following some assassin intel allows us to sneak into a party and kill Woodes Rogers, leaving only Roberts and Torres to deal with. Before dying, we somehow reach a mutual goal of killing Roberts, and he gives us his location. With this information, we track him down and kill him, and after that, we return to the observatory and finally kill Torres, and return the skull thing that Roberts took, shutting down the defense mechanisms and sealing the observatory again. With all that done, the sequence ends, and we get one last modern day section. Waiting for us outside the Animus is the IT guy, who's actually been Robert's reincarnation the whole time. After he injects us with some blue shit, security shows up and kills him. Now that our name is cleared of being the leaker, we return to the Animus and earn a trophy. To end the story, Edward's daughter shows up and together they sail back to England, where we get a timescape showing them, along with Haytham at the opera, paying off the intro to AC3. This also officially marks the end of the main story. Before moving on from main missions though, I still have to do the optional objectives for one mission, that being air assassinating Roberts. With that done, I get the 100% story sync trophy. With this first section completed, the next step towards the plat are a bunch of side content and miscellaneous trophies, starting with completing all remaining naval forts. By this point, I had completed most of them for the fast travel points, so it didn't take long to clear the remaining ones for a trophy. The next thing I did were all the shipwrecks, and like with the forts, I already did most of them for the fast travel, so this was another quick trophy to unlock. The last location based trophies I got were for going to every location in the game, pretty self-explanatory and easy, and unlocking all 8 taverns by beating up the nearby bandits. With the taverns unlocked, I could also unlock the trophy for drinking too much and waking up in a haystack. Next, I went for the only collectible related trophy for collecting some Mayan stones spread across the world, which I used to open a door in Tulum for a trophy and outfit. The other outfit related trophy was for crafting the hunter set, but instead of hunting rare ass animals, I bought their pelts instead and used that to craft it. After that, I went to complete a Templar hunt, which were just 3 short missions, ending with us killing a Templar for a trophy. Then I went whale hunting for the first time in the entire playthrough, since I had to hunt a killer whale for a trophy. This was also pretty easy since by this point I had my whaling equipment maxed out. The next trophy did require some setup to even attempt, since I needed all 4 pistol slots crafted, so I had to go hunting for a bit for the remaining materials. After hunting a humpback whale and crocodile, I crafted the remaining pistol holsters and got 4 multi-pistol kills for the trophy. The next trophy was a bit trickier, since I had to distract guards with dancers while I freed some prisoners for my crew. The issue is that at this point I always had a full crew, so prisoners just weren't spawning anywhere. So instead, I replayed an early mission where you form your initial crew, and luckily there were plenty of dancers around, so from that point it was only a matter of bringing them to the guards and freeing the prisoners quickly. With almost all of the non-naval trophies completed, I left the Animus to hack some more computers for a trophy. Now all that's left are ship related trophies. Of course, I started with the most straightforward one, that being completing all naval contracts. Although they were all easy, there were quite a few, so it did take a while to get, but eventually I beat them all for a trophy. Also, I wasn't recording during all the missions, so I missed getting a trophy for recruiting 500 crew members, which I got during one of them. Before going for the legendary ships though, I went to collect all the treasure chests that had the final ship upgrades so that I could fully level it out to make things easier, and also unlocking a trophy. With my ship maxed out, I went for the legendary ships, and all but one were really easy. The first one I went for was the hard one, since I had to fight 2 strong ships at once, and it didn't register in my head that getting them both low before destroying one was easier, because when there's one left, it becomes a lot stronger, so getting it low in advance was the play. It just took me like 5 tries to realize that. The next 3 were nothing special, except for one that only took damage from backshots. After beating all 4, I got a useless ability since all ship related content is done, a trophy, and was 80,000 reals richer. And all this money would be really useful since I now had to max out my base, which costs just over 90,000 to do. After the final upgrade, I got the trophy. Now that all the Happy Land easy single player trophies are out the way, now's the time to suffer through the grind that are the online trophies. The first one of these was still technically in the single player, but required an online connection. Remember the white whale that I mentioned towards the start, that was so easy to find that I got about 10 throughout the whole playthrough? I now had to find a convoy and chest that work the same way. They randomly spawn in set locations, refreshing every so often, and get shared online. So you'd think that by now I would have found at least one of these, right? Turns out this trophy was not designed with dead servers in mind, because back when people still played, their discoveries were marked on the map and going to them counted towards the trophy. But now I had to find them myself, and with over 60 spots to check for the chest alone, it was bound to take a while. So after over 2 hours of checking each spot, nothing. No chests appeared. I think what happened is that while I was checking, the servers refreshed and switched the locations to spots I already checked, so I had to restart my search from the start. But by some miracle, I did run into a single convoy while looking for the chest, saving me from that search later. Eventually, on my second go through of all the locations, I found a chest at like the 20th spot I checked, finally freeing me from this grind for the trophy. Now for the real multiplayer trophies. First, I completed a game with a customized loadout for a trophy. Then I did all the tutorial missions for the Wolfpack game mode for another one, which took about an hour to do. And after that I got one for playing in a player-made match in the game lab, and although it's simple, it did take a while because no one is queuing up for this game mode, but eventually I did manage to get it. These last two, however, took significantly longer to get. All-Rounder required using all 15 abilities, 5 ranged weapons, as well as completing a match in every single game mode. This sounds simple enough until you realize that the last ability gets unlocked at level 48, and most game modes have no one playing them unless it's picked by the quick play. Playing every game mode was almost entirely luck based if not boosted for that reason, but also because either the servers or the game kept crashing mid-match. Eventually though, I did manage to play through all 6 modes. Using every ability and weapon had a small bypass though. There's a perk called Copycat that lets you copy the abilities of the person that killed you, meaning that you can use abilities and weapons you haven't yet unlocked, and these count for the trophy. This is doubly useful because abilities are expensive to unlock on top of the level requirement. Obviously though, there's still the RNG of dying to someone using an ability you haven't used yet, but tracking the ones that you have helps a lot. Eventually though, after a while, I got this trophy to pop. But none of these trophies so far came close to comparing to the grind that was reaching level 55 in multiplayer. Right off the bat, normal multiplayer gave fuck all in terms of XP, so the only way to get this trophy in a more reasonable but still painful amount of time was to run solo Wolfpack. This game mode is entirely score and objective based, with better assassinations giving higher scores, better times, and therefore getting more XP, so running it solo ensures that I don't have some bot throwing my games. The average game took me around 12 minutes and gave 6,300 XP. Level 55 required 526,000 XP. Do the math, it comes out to 83.5, round up to 84 games, translating to roughly 17 hours, not counting loading times, breaks, and time wasting. 17 hours of doing the same 12-minute mission. Safe to say, this shit is not it, and thankfully Ubisoft realized that too, so they made extra in-game achievements that gave a decent amount of XP, anywhere from 500 to over 3,000. Even though that doesn't sound like much, they stack up if you play well. The most lucrative ones were the ones that were ability related, meaning that I ended up by buying most of the abilities anyway, making the copycat strat from earlier kind of useless. Though I didn't calculate it exactly, I roughly estimate that these shaved off 3 to 4 hours from the grind, making it somewhat more bearable. After 3 days of grinding this out, I eventually hit level 55 for a trophy, which unlocked the AC4 Blackflag Platinum. So, to answer that question from the start, if the game is as good as I remember, or nostalgia was just blinding me. I think that the main story and naval combat were better than I remembered and genuinely warrant a playthrough, especially to see Edward's development through the story. Even though I spoiled damn near the whole game, I still recommend you check it out and at least play through the main story. The side content is typical Ubisoft content and the trophies were at times painful to go for, so keep that in mind if you plan on completing it. The best game so far, but with the worst platinum, just barely worse than 3's. If you'd like to see me complete more games, make sure to subscribe, leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and let me know what other games you'd like to see me complete. Thanks for watching and have a good one.